All right, Maher, time now for our buy low, sell high segment here on the cycle. We're going to be talking about, and by the way, we mostly are going to do buy lows and sell highs just throughout the course of the year, and I'm going to do this today for one of these.
I was going to say, you've already cheated. You might as well preface it.
Well, it's not a cheating. I'm establishing that it's not cheating, that we can do buy highs and sell lows, because I do think that's an important part. Everybody talks about buy lows and sell highs. I think it's really important to talk about who are the buy highs and who are the sell lows. Those are often the more difficult kind of decisions to come to when you're trying to trade as a fantasy manager. So I think it's worth including those when we feel there's a good place for it, which I do today. But we'll start with a true buy low from you. Who you got?
So I also cheated, kind of, because I'm picking two players, but they are related because I'm going with the Contreras brothers. I'm going with Willson Contreras and William Contreras, who are both off to really slow starts. And I mentioned earlier how Rafael Devers, if we're going by VBR on FantasyPros MLB stats page, Rafael Devers is 392 out of 394. 394 out of 394 is Willson Contreras, because he is 0 for 19 with 9 strikeouts, with 0 counting stats to come with. No RBIs, no walks, whereas Devers at least has 1 RBI and 4 walks. Willson Contreras is a absolutely empty 0 for 19 with 9 strikeouts and nothing else. William Contreras, not quite as bad, but also you had to pay a lot more for him on draft day, but he's 297. You know, I didn't have to turn off that top 300 filter to find William Contreras. He was right at the bottom of the top 300. But still, 2 for 16, batting 125 to start the season, but still very early. But I'm already seeing fantasy managers panic in leagues. I've already seen someone drop JT Realmuto in a league, which I thought was, insane. Not that like he's like the catcher that he once was, but you don't need to be dropping JT Realmuto on April 1st. And it's one of those things where catcher is a really shallow position, and there's not going to be a lot that you're going to find on the waiver wire throughout the season, and you might be in a position where you have to stream catcher. But if, a fantasy manager who spent whatever draft capital it was on William Contreras or Willson Contreras is already panicking and they're out there, I'm absolutely willing to buy low, and maybe even not like a buy high, but like a fair buy at his draft costs kind of a thing. Just because I'm confident that both players at the end of the season are going to have very good numbers, and they're also, most importantly for catchers, going to be in the lineup almost every day.
I think there's a good call. It kind of ties into my buy low, which is literally any struggling stud. I don't, even somebody like Devers, who we have legitimate concerns about, just as a blanket rule, if we are 1 week into the season and 5 games earlier I thought this guy was a 3rd round pick, and now he's been terrible. I almost cursed. Now he's been really, really bad. I will buy low. Like as a blanket rule, I think you're going to win that deal more often than you're going to lose it in the course of your fantasy baseball career. And like I said, it's really just like a blind faith in, I'm not going to trust a 5 game. If this 5 game sample size happened in June, nobody would be selling these guys. So if they're willing to sell them in early April, I want to be the guy buying them. What do you think about that as a kind of like a general rule before I get into my buy high?
Yeah, that's pretty similar to what I was saying. Maybe I got on the opposite end, but you want to be right, but also if you can acquire a good player at whatever cost, there are only so many really good players out there, and so whether you're buying high or buying low, acquiring them, is usually a good move for your fantasy team. It's just a matter of what you have to give up, and it depends on what the buy high is,
Yeah. So what I put in as a buy high, because I wanted to give at least one individual name rather than just saying any struggling stud. So that's why I went in the other direction instead of doing a buy low, is Adley Rutschman. And he's somebody that I did kind of plant my flag on in some of our shows in February and March, and he started off well. There's room for him to get even better. I mean, his average is 286, his expected batting average. It's super early for stuff like that, but it's 344. So that kind of highlights that maybe even he's had a little bit of bad luck through the strong start. He had 2 home runs on opening day. He just looks really dialed in, I think, just from the eye test and watching him. And that was kind of what they were talking about all spring, is he had some injury stuff the second half of last year. It was easy, kind of just got away from him. And this year he is dialed in. And those home runs he hit in Toronto were titanic shots. And I think we're going to see a lot of that this year. I think this is the year where he is catcher 1 in fantasy throughout the season for the most part. The lineup for the Orioles is taking some hits in terms of injuries. Colton Cowser is going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks. But Gunnar Henderson is coming back, I would imagine, very soon. In just a couple of days, he certainly seems healthy with the way he's hitting in the minors. So I think Adley is really good. I think he's going to outperform his draft spot this year, which is still as high as in the 50s. And he is somebody I would buy high on if you want to invest in a strong catcher. I think he'll be the best catcher in fantasy this year. I have seen enough to be a really big believer that the kind of step forward I expected in the spring is happening.
Yeah, and according to the FantasyPros VBR that I keep looking at while you're talking, he's already number 3. Will Smith is up there, number 1. I imagine Adley will overtake him, and Keibert Ruiz is number 2. I don't think that's going to stick. And friend of the show, Carson Kelly, is number 4. And number 5 is someone named Dylan Dingler.
I don't think we can legally call Carson Kelly a friend of the show. At least like Justin Steele knows Debro. I don't think we can call anybody who hasn't been on the show a friend of the show. But
we don't know that he isn't a friend of the show. He might be.
He might be a listener of the show. That would be pretty cool. But I think we know he's not a friend of the show. So all in on Adley this year. I was beforehand. I'm buying high. I don't expect this to go away anytime soon. In fact, I expect the numbers to look even better going forward than they already have been. Let's get to our sell highs. And this is somebody that we already kind of talked about here in terms of some of those early standouts statistically, and you're looking to get out from owning them. Yeah,
so we're buying catchers and one shallow position, and apparently I'm selling a third baseman, despite how shallow that position is. And I'm selling Eugenio Suarez. In the article that's coming out on Fantasy Pros, which will be coming out by the time you listen to this, it'll be out because I already have marketing messaging me, asking me where it is. And I said, hold on, I got to record the cycle with Worm here first, and then I'll get it out. But Eugenio Suarez, really good hitter, really good source of power. He already has 5 home runs. But also, he's the kind of player, what I kind of wrote up with him was pretty simple. Like, last year we got a really good year out of him. We got 30 home runs and a decent average, which is sometimes a problem with him. But also, and right now you've got 5 home runs already. But also, like his value is never going to be higher than it is right now. Where managers are off to slow starts in their league, especially looking for third baseman, and they know they have locked in power with Eugenio Suarez, and you can probably sell him for more than he's worth. And the other thing that concerns me with him is that I do think he's going to be a good source of power, but he's not like this year in year out consistent producer that you can like lock in a certain kind of production, because we've seen his floor and it's lower than most regular starters or like regular contributors who have the kind of ceiling that he is. Like, he has a very wide range of outcomes because we've seen him bat below 200 before. We've seen him bat like 206 before. And so sometimes like that, those 30 home runs are great if it comes to a 250 batting average. If it's 30 home runs and he's batting 210, like that's not as helpful for your fantasy team. But right now he's batting 278 with 5 home runs to start. If I'm able to sell high on him and get something else that I really need, I'm definitely willing to do it.
I think that's fair. I don't have anything to add to that. I agree with him as a sell high. My sell high is Andres Gimenez, and I think this one's pretty simple. Like, he already has 3 home runs. I don't think that is some newfound power by him. I think that's a flash in the pan early in the season. His StatCast numbers last year were so horrific. I mean, they were like pretty much every part of his profile was dreadful, like very much on the blue side of things. And even this year, like, obviously it looks better because it's early and that stuff hasn't really quite normalized yet, but it's still not like it's like amazing. Like, his barrel rate is still, in like the 25th percentile range. His bat speed is 25th percentile, stuff like that. And the other thing that I really want to highlight, and I know he has a high batting average right now, the stolen bases, he only has 1. Obviously, this is somebody who changed teams. He had 30 in each of the last 2 seasons, and so that was a way for him to still maintain some value. The Blue Jays only have 2 steals on the season. He obviously has 1 of them. There's only 5 teams with fewer than the Blue Jays. I wonder, we just talked about the Pirates being this really aggressive team. I wonder if the Blue Jays are not going to be that aggressive of a team, and if that 30 steals number becomes something that's like really not attainable. Last year, just to put it in context, Blue Jays had the 4th fewest stolen bases, so this not like this is a new thing this year. So if he's not able to sniff that 30 stolen base mark because of the way the Blue Jays operate, and I don't think the power is legitimate, and I think the batting average is going to come down too, those are all reasons for me to be very willing to sell high if anybody is looking to to add a second baseman in Gimenez.
That's an interesting call. I was already going to comment one part of that. I did not know the thing about the Blue Jays not running as much, but that is definitely a reason to be concerned because I agree. I don't think the power is going to be there. You mentioned like the StatCast data is not very promising last year. It's never been promising for him. It's like if you go back every year, it's bad all the time. He's always managed to be like a like a fine hitter, like in despite of the StatCast data, but it's not in a way that like he's going to have consistent power. Like he can be like a slap hitter. He'll get on base. Like his average might survive some of what the underlying numbers are saying because there are some players who just consistently outperform their expected numbers, and he's probably one of those players, but just not with the consistent power. Unless these balls are super juiced again, which then maybe he will
change things. Yeah.
But I tend to agree. If the Blue Jays thing about them not running as often is definitely a cause for concern because if you drafted him for like a certain kind of floor and then the stolen base upside at his position. And if you're not going to get those, then how you built your team is probably going to be impacted because you're probably counting on, give or take 30 steals from him.
I feel like the best case scenario this year for him is like a 280 average with 10 home runs and 20 stolen bases. And that is like the absolute high watermark. Like I'm not saying it's even that likely that he gets there. So maybe that changes, like you said, if the ball really is juiced and stuff like that is kind of coming into play, maybe it does look differently, but I don't see him getting more than 20 stolen bases this year unless the Blue Jays really change their philosophy, which, we can hope for, but we'll see if that actually happens. Let's get into our waivers pickups. I went for guys who are a lot less rostered than you did.
I saw that.
I'll go ahead and start on this one since you started on the buy lows and sell highs. Favorite hitter, Alek Thomas, somebody that I liked to bring up last year when he came back from his injury and was very interested in, who has gotten off to a hot start when playing this year and is only 2% roster. And then the other one I wanted to mention is Heston Kjerstad, which I only bring up. He hasn't necessarily gotten off to this great start, but because Colton Cowser is now going to miss maybe as much as 2 months with that fractured thumb from sliding headfirst into first base, which I love Colton, but man, that drives me nuts. It is provably not faster. It increases your chance of injury. The only reason to slide to first ever is if the throw pulls the first baseman off the bag and you're trying to avoid a tag before you get to the base. That is literally the only reason.
I actually found out about that injury from your tweet about it. I was like, what is he talking about? And I was like, oh, that's what he's talking about.
Can't stand it. But Kjerstad is somebody that we have, as Orioles fans, have been begging Brandon Hyde to give him more opportunity. I think he can hit lefties better than Hyde thinks he can. Obviously, he's got immense raw power. And if this injury turns into a real opportunity for Kjerstad to play basically every day for the first time in his career, I'm really interested in finding out what that looks like. So if you're in a deep enough league, again, he's only 7% rostered, I would be really intrigued to see what you have there and pick him up on the cheap, and maybe you get some really good value out of it. So those are my two, Alek Thomas and Heston Kjerstad. Who you got for your favorite hitter?
So you mentioned you went much deeper. I did include a few deep league targets we can talk about at the end. But when you look at like some of the I go by like consensus roster percentage, and it can be difficult to kind of project like who's going to be available in your league. So I don't want to just ignore players who might be available in your league. So I tried to kind of like middle it a little bit. So I went with Otto Lopez, who's consensus 46% rostered. It's likely if you're playing on CBS, he's probably rostered. But if you're on Yahoo, he might be available, and if you're on ESPN, he's almost definitely available. But he's someone who's gone off to a strong start. I've kind of gotten off to a slow start at my like second base shortstop position, and he's someone who I don't expect we're going to see like the power that we're seeing early on, because I think he already has a couple home runs, and similar to Andrés Gimenez, I don't think we're going to see that. But he's solid average and stolen base upside, and I don't know if he's going to be someone that you need to roster all season, but I think at the very least he's going to be someone who's on and off rosters this season based on if he's hot at the moment, and he's hot at the moment right now. So I'm riding with Otto Lopez in a few of my leagues where I need some middle infield help.
On the pitcher side, I throw out Casey Mize, who's 15% rostered. He had a good first start here this season. We had somebody who gave their big bold prediction for the year. Was it he was going to lead the league in strikeouts? Was that him, or no?
That was Pavetta.
Or was that he was going to win the Cy Young?
It might be the Cy Young, because I think
it was. We had a bold prediction for one of the listeners.
I think he was Cy Young and Pavetta was strikeouts.
I think he might have been Cy Young. At any rate, former
Nailed
number
it.
one overall pick, like a consensus number one overall pick back in 2018. So he has the pedigree. I like that he's another year removed from the injury that cost him all of 2023. He did look good in this first start. It was just a first start, but 6 innings, 5 2/3 innings pitched. Got the win. I've looked at it. So early on, I tend to feel like a lot of the guys that are already largely rostered I don't want to overreact to like a flash in the pan or just, hey, they had like a hot stretch or like one good start to start the season. So early on, I do like to look at the deeper guys because I want to look at the guys where we didn't see this coming because like there is something different about them. It's too early to really say like, he's throwing his four-seamer way less often or whatever. It's like 3% different, in one start. I'm not going to dive too deep into that sort of thing with Casey Mize, but again, he has pedigree, and so I think there's real upside there, and he's not really rostered, so it should be super cheap to get him. He's somebody that I want to take a swing on and hope that maybe he's, switching things up, worked on it a bit. I know there's like the sweeper, added as well, which is like, again, it's early enough in the season that I don't want to like put too much weight on that as like having fixed it or whatever, but it is worth noting the sweeper. But in general, somebody that I want to take a risk on, and again, I think you can get pretty cheap off waivers because he's barely rostered right now.
Yeah, he's someone who's gotten a lot of hype after his strong start. I feel like sometimes I kind of get like prospect fatigue with like a player like him because we've been like waiting for him to be really good for so long, and it's the kind of name that gets like brought up, and I don't want to like immediately just like put my nose up at it. But like you said, one of my favorite things to do like early in the year is like if a player gets off to like a good start, especially a pitcher, is like see what's different. Is there anything new? Like, is he throwing harder? Is he throwing like a new pitch, or is he like drastically, changing his pitch mix? And like, I was hoping to see more. I mean, granted, it's one start, so there's not a whole lot to go on there. I was hoping to kind of see like like a huge jump in this pitch and a drop in this pitch, because sometimes it'd be like this guy doesn't throw a sinker anymore. Now he throws this. He is throwing a sweeper now, but he threw 4 of them. So I'd like to see more of that sweeper because it seemed like it went okay. And it also looks like he abandoned his knuckle curve, which is not a pitch he featured a ton last year, but it also wasn't super impactful for him. But sweepers are sweeping the nation, and if he can be the next guy to throw a sweeper, we'll see. We've seen before pitchers unlocking something by adding something to their arsenal, and maybe he's the next one, because also he's not a big strikeout guy, and so if he can add something that will put batters away like sweepers tend to do, maybe we got something here.
Quickly give me your favorite pitchers off waivers and also some deep league targets.
First off, don't tell me to go quickly. I'll go at my own pace, and we'll
as you know, have a very hard out in this recording window. So
I'll go quick. So I'm going to talk about these players in an upcoming segment too, but for the sake of this part, I'll mention them. For like these players might be rostered in your league. Dustin May probably is after his strong start, but I'm going with Jesus Luzardo and Dustin May, both consensus rostered less than 50%. If they are available in your league, pause this video and go or audio and go pick them up now, because they need to be rostered everywhere. If you're on CBS, it's likely they are rostered. If you're on Yahoo or ESPN, they're probably available, or they might be available. So definitely double check, because I think both are really good, and we've kind of forgotten about them for different reasons. Both have had really good first starts, and they're not going to be available for very long. So definitely go get them. And then deep league targets, real quick. Brady Singer is someone I've liked for a long time. I do have a little bit of prospect fatigue with him as well. But again, changing his pitch mix. He looked really good the other day. He started throwing a cutter, which looked really good, and then he kind of decreased his slider and sweeper usage. I think he actually abandoned the sweeper in favor of the cutter and is just doing slider cutter to kind of tunnel them a little bit. Kyle Hart is someone I watched pitch the other night, and it was very intriguing. I hadn't really talked about him or thought about him much in the offseason, but he's someone who won the KBO equivalent of the Cy Young last year and was just out there pitching for the Padres and looking pretty good, and he's available everywhere. His consensus roster percentage is 1%, so he's available everywhere. And like I said, he's probably more of a deep league target if you need pitching, but not the worst start for him. I was intrigued by what I saw. And then Matthew Liberatore, I'm not Italian, so it's not the easiest name for me to pronounce, but I believe that's correct. He's 2% rostered. He's got an upcoming two-step this week, two-start week. Former first-round pick. First start was fine. But I think he's, an upcoming 2-star pitcher who, in deep leagues, you can definitely use a pitcher like him.
I love the Luzardo call. Is my favorite of these. I really have always liked his stuff and his upside, so I think that's a great one.